The bass from the music hit me before I even got out of my car. 3 days away on business, and already Juniper had turned our parents' house into her personal nightclub. Through the living room windows, silhouettes danced and swayed, their movements casting wild shadows across the manicured lawn. I gripped my phone, thumb hovering over Mom's number. But what was the point? She and Dad were probably at their weekend cabin, pretending not to know what Juniper was up to. Again, the front door was unlocked. Inside, the air reeked of spilled beer and cheap perfume. Someone had pushed all the furniture against the walls, transforming the space into a makeshift dance floor. My sister stood in the center, head thrown back, drink sloshing in her hand as she twirled.
Gaya.
Juniper's eyes lit up with false brightness when she spotted me. The prodigal daughter returns. Everyone, this is my big sister, the one who's too important for family now. A few partygoers turned to stare. I forced myself to breathe slowly, counting backward from 10 like my therapist suggested. We need to talk.
Now.
Oh, do we? Juniper's smile sharpened. Because last I checked, you were too busy with your fancy business trips to talk. 3 days, Kala. You missed everything. Missed what, exactly? She laughed, but the sound was hollow. Like you care. You're just here to judge me, right? Poor little Juniper, such a mess compared to perfect Kala. A guy I didn't recognize wrapped his arms around my sister's waist. She leaned into him, eyes never leaving my face. This is Derek. Or maybe Danny. We just met, but he gets me, unlike some people. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You need to end this.
Now.
Before. Before what? Juniper's voice rose, drawing more attention. Before Mom and Dad find out?
Please.
They already know. They just don't want to deal with it. With me. Sound familiar? My phone buzzed, a text from Reese asking if I'd made it home safely. I ignored it, focusing on my sister's flushed face, the slight tremor in her hands. Let me help you clear everyone out. We can talk after. I don't need your help. She shoved past me, stumbling slightly. I never needed it. You just love playing savior, don't you? Makes you feel better about abandoning us. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sis. Juniper grabbed a bottle from a nearby table, refilling her cup. But hey, at least you got what you wanted. The perfect job, the perfect boyfriend, the perfect escape. Meanwhile, I'm stuck here, watching Mom cry every time you skip another family dinner. The music seemed to pulse louder, matching the throbbing in my temples. Through the crowd, I caught glimpses of overturned photo frames, scattered cushions. Mom's prized vase teetering dangerously close to the edge of a shelf. You want to know what you missed? Juniper's voice dropped to a whisper. I found something interesting in Dad's office. Something that might make you rethink your whole perfect family narrative. Before I could respond, she turned away, melting back into the crowd. Thanks for stopping by, sis. Don't worry about cleaning up. I'm sure Mom will handle it. She always does. I stood there, surrounded by strangers in my childhood home, watching my sister disappear into the chaos she'd created. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Mom. Everything okay with Junie? Dad and I are worried. I closed my eyes, remembering the look in Juniper's eyes, that mix of defiance and desperation. Whatever she'd found in Dad's office, whatever game she was playing, this was just the beginning. 3 days after the party disaster, Mom insisted on a family dinner. To clear the air, she said, but I knew better. It was damage control, her specialty. Reese squeezed my hand under the table as Juniper waltzed in 20 minutes late, wearing the innocent smile she'd perfected since childhood. Sorry, everyone, she chirped, sliding into her seat. Traffic was awful. Oh, Reese, I didn't know you'd be here. Dad barely looked up from his plate. Your mother mentioned it twice. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken accusations. Mom bustled around, refilling water glasses no one had touched. I made your favorite lasagna, Junie. And Kala, I remembered you liked the end pieces. Actually, Juniper said, twirling her fork, Kala hasn't liked end pieces since high school. But how would you know? She's barely been home. Reese shifted beside me. I forced myself to take a bite, though the food tasted like cardboard. I've been busy with work. Oh yes, the famous career. Juniper's eyes gleamed. Speaking of which, how's that promotion coming along? The one you were so sure about. My fork clattered against the plate. What are you talking about? Just something I heard. She shrugged, but there was nothing casual about it. Your boss, Richard, right? He's an old friend of Dad's golf buddy. Small world. Dad's head snapped up. Juniper.
What?
I'm just making conversation. She turned to Reese. Did Calla tell you about the time she... That's enough. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. We're here to have a nice dinner. Are we? Juniper leaned forward. Because I thought we were here to pretend everything's fine. That's what we do best, right? Pretend Calla's not avoiding us. Pretend Dad's not.
Uni.
Dad's warning came too late. Pretend you didn't find those letters in Dad's office? The room went still. Mom's hand froze mid-reach for the salt shaker. Dad's face drained of color. What letters? I asked, but I already knew. This was what Juniper had been hinting at during the party. Nothing important, Dad said quickly. Too quickly. Juniper's laugh was sharp enough to cut. Really? Because they seemed pretty important. Especially the ones about. That's enough. Dad's fist hit the table, making the glasses jump. This discussion is over. Of course it is. Juniper stood, her chair scraping against the floor. It always is when it's something you don't want to talk about. But maybe Calla deserves to know. Maybe we all do. She stormed out, leaving chaos in her wake. Mom started gathering plates with shaking hands. Dad wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. I should check on her, Mom murmured, but Dad caught her arm. Let her go, Leora. She needs to cool off. Reese cleared his throat. Maybe we should. Stay. Mom insisted, her smile brittle.
Please.
I'll make coffee. But as she disappeared into the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of tears in her eyes. Dad followed, leaving Reese and me alone with the wreckage of dinner. Your sister seems unhinged, I supplied. Manipulative? Take your pick. I was going to say troubled. Reese's voice was gentle. What do you think those letters are about? I stared at Juniper's empty chair, remembering the look in Dad's eyes. Whatever was in those letters, it was big enough to shake him. Big enough to give Juniper ammunition. I don't know, I said finally. But I'm going to find out. From the kitchen came the sound of hushed, urgent voices. My parents, probably deciding how to spin this latest drama. But Juniper was right about one thing. We were all experts at pretending. Maybe it was time to stop. My phone buzzed, a text from Juniper. Want the truth? Meet me tomorrow. Alone. Richard called me into his office first thing Monday morning. The pit in my stomach grew as I noticed the HR representative sitting quietly in the corner. On his desk lay a manila folder with my name on it. There's been some concerning feedback, he began, not quite meeting my eyes. About the Peterson account.
My throat went dry.
What kind of feedback? Claims that you've been sharing confidential information, using insider knowledge for personal gain. He slid a document across the desk. These emails suggest. Those aren't mine. The words came out sharp and fast. Someone's fabricated. They came from your work account, Calla. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I recognized some of the emails. They were real conversations I'd had about the Peterson deal, but they'd been altered. Key phrases changed or added to paint a damning picture. I need you to take some time off while we investigate, Richard said. Paid leave, of course. I walked out in a daze, barely registering the concerned looks from my colleagues. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed Juniper. Rough morning. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I heard the Peterson account is having some issues. The pieces clicked into place. You did this. Did what? I just happened to mention to Richard's wife. We take the same yoga class, by the way, how worried I was about my sister's ethical choices lately. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. Why? Because you need to understand what it feels like. Her voice hardened. To have everything you've worked for threatened. To feel powerless. This is about Dad's letters, isn't it? A pause. Maybe if you'd been around more, you'd know what's really going on in this family. But You were too busy climbing the corporate ladder, weren't you?
Juni.
Oh, and you might want to check your email. I sent something interesting to your entire department. Just a few old family photos. Nothing too embarrassing. She laughed softly. Well, maybe a little embarrassing. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, hands trembling as I opened my work email. There they were, photos from my rebellious teenage years, carefully selected to make me look unstable, reckless. The kind of person who might leak confidential information for profit. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mom. Juni's upset. Says you accused her of something? Please call her. Another message popped up, this one from an unknown number. Saw the photos. Always knew you were a fraud. Peterson Corporation. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd made excuses for Juniper's behavior, all the times our parents had smoothed things over. But this was different. She wasn't just acting out anymore. She was systematically destroying everything I'd built.
My phone rang.
Reese. Your sister just called me, he said without preamble. She told me some things about your past, about what happened during your first job. Whatever she said, I know it's probably not true. But Kala, this has to stop. You need to deal with this. I watched people stream in and out of the coffee shop, living their normal lives while mine unraveled. You're right. It needs to stop. I pulled up the transfer request form I'd been avoiding. A 6-month position had opened in the Seattle office. Far from Juniper, from the family secrets, from this whole mess. My finger hovered over the submit button as another text came through from Dad this time. We need to talk. About the letters. About everything. But I was done talking. Done pretending. Done letting Juniper control the narrative. I hit submit, then typed a response to Dad. You're right. We do need to talk. But first, you need to know what your youngest daughter just did. Seattle's rain matched my mood perfectly. 2 months into my transfer, and the distance hadn't brought the clarity I'd hoped for. My temporary apartment felt as hollow as the promises I'd made to call home more often. The knock at my door came just after midnight. I expected Reese, who'd been threatening to visit. Instead, I found Grandmother Alara, rain-soaked and carrying a familiar wooden box. Your father's letters, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The ones Juniper's been using to torment everyone. My hands trembled as I reached for the box. How did you? Junie may be clever, but she forgets I taught her every hiding spot in that house. Alara's eyes were sharp, missing nothing, including the loose floorboard in her closet. Inside the box, dozens of letters lay bundled with faded ribbon. The top one bore my mother's handwriting, dated 5 years before my birth. I haven't read them, Alara said, but I know what they contain. Your father's not who you think he is, Kala. Neither is your mother. My phone buzzed, another message from Juniper. Missing something? Don't worry, I made copies. She's spiraling, Alara continued, watching me. Your leaving town only convinced her she was right about being abandoned. Now she's determined to make everyone pay. By destroying my career, my relationship. The bitterness surprised me. What's in these letters that's worth all this? That's not my story to tell. Alara moved to the window, watching the rain. But ask yourself, why didn't your father ever mention his first marriage? The room seemed to tilt. His what? Read the letters, dear. But remember, sometimes the truth hurts more than lies. My phone lit up again, Mom, this time. Junie's in the hospital. Overdose. Please come home. Alara didn't look surprised. Your sister's playing her final card. The question is, will you let her win? I sank onto the couch, the box heavy in my lap. Win what? She's already taken everything. Has she? Alara's voice sharpened. You have a choice here, Kala. You can stay hidden in Seattle, letting her control the narrative. Or you can go home and face the truth, all of it. The truth about Dad's first marriage? About whatever else is in these letters. The truth about why Juniper really hates you. Alara moved toward the door. It's not about the letters, dear. It's about what happened the night your father's first wife died. The night your mother was there. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Dad. I should have told you years ago. About Sarah. About everything. Junie found out by accident. Please come home. Let me explain. Alara paused at the door. Whatever you decide, remember, revenge is a poison that kills slowly. Your sister's already drinking it. The question is, will you join her? After she left, I sat in the dark, the box of letters like a bomb in my lap. Outside, Seattle's rain kept falling, washing away everything except the choice before me. I could stay here, safe in my self-imposed exile. Or I could go home and face whatever ugly truth lay in these letters about Dad's first wife, Sarah, about Mom's involvement, about why Juniper chose now to detonate our family's carefully constructed lies. My fingers traced the edge of the first letter. Sometimes the truth hurts more than lies, Alara had said. But lies had already cost me my career, my peace of mind, and nearly my sister's life. I opened the letter and began to read. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I followed the nurse to Juniper's room. Mom's mascara-stained face appeared first, then Dad's rigid posture by the window. Between them, Juniper lay pale against white sheets, and 4 dripping steadily beside her. You actually came. Her voice was raspy, but the familiar edge remained. Did grandmother's delivery service convince you? Mom's head snapped up. What delivery? Nothing, I said quickly, but Juniper's laugh cut through the room. Oh, did Dad not tell you about the letters, Mom? About Sarah? The monitor's steady beeping filled the silence. Dad's knuckles whitened against the windowsill. Silas. Mom's voice trembled. What letters? The ones that explain everything, Juniper said. About the accident. About why Dad married you so quickly afterward. About. That's enough. Dad turned, his face ashen. This isn't the time or place. When is the time? I stepped forward, Sarah's letters burning in my bag. When Juniper succeeds next time. When she's destroyed everything I've built. Built. Juniper's laugh turned bitter. You mean the life you got because of what they did? The opportunities one never had because I wasn't. Junie, please. Mom reached for her hand, but Juniper pulled away. Tell her Dad. Tell Calla why you always favored her. Why you pushed her to succeed while I was just the backup plan. You don't know what you're talking about. Dad moved toward the door, but I blocked his path. Then explain it. All of it. Starting with Sarah. The monitor's beeping accelerated. Mom sank into a chair, her face buried in her hands. Your father and I, she began, but Dad cut her off. Leora, don't. They deserve to know. Mom looked up, tears streaming. About that night. About why we. A nurse appeared in the doorway. MS. Andrews needs rest. Family can return during visiting hours tomorrow. Perfect timing, Juniper muttered. Just like that night, right, Mom? Outside, the summer evening felt thick with unspoken words. Dad headed for his car without looking back, but Mom caught my arm. The letters, she whispered. How much do you know? Enough to understand why Juniper hates me, why she's trying to destroy my life. She doesn't hate you. Mom's grip tightened. She hates what we did, what our choices cost her. And what exactly was that? Ask your father about the inheritance. About why Sarah's family sued after the accident. About why you got everything while Juniper. Leora. Dad's voice carried across the parking lot. Not here. Mom released my arm, her eyes pleading. Come to the house tomorrow. We'll explain everything. But as they drove away, my phone lit up with a text from Juniper. They'll lie. They always do. Want the real story? Meet me at Sarah's grave. Midnight. I stood in the gathering darkness, weighing my options. The letters in my bag held one version of the truth. My parents promised another. And somewhere between them lay Juniper's twisted perspective, sharp enough to draw blood. Another text arrived, this one from Reese. Your grandmother called. Said to remind you that some truths are better left buried. What's going on, Calla? I stared at the hospital's illuminated windows, thinking of Juniper lying there, simultaneously victim and villain in our family's tragedy. The truth about Sarah, about the inheritance, about that night, it all led to this moment. My fingers hovered over the phone's keyboard as I made my choice. Sometimes I realized you have to break everything to fix it properly. Meet me at midnight. I texted back to Juniper. It's time we both learned the truth. Sarah's headstone gleamed in the moonlight, the dates mocking me. She died exactly 1 month before my birth. Juniper sat cross-legged before it, still wearing her hospital gown beneath a borrowed jacket. You shouldn't have left the hospital, I said. And you shouldn't have gotten everything that was meant for her daughter. Juniper's voice was hollow. But here we are. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Sarah was pregnant, 8 months. Juniper traced the dates on the headstone. Dad was going to leave Mom for her. But then there was the accident. She pulled a crumpled photo from her pocket. Mom was there that night. Ask her about the brake lines. My legs gave out, and I sank to the damp grass. That's not possible. The inheritance was supposed to go to Sarah's baby. Instead, it went to you, Dad's firstborn with his new wife. Convenient timing, don't you think? Stop it.
Why?
Because it ruins your perfect image of them. Juniper's laugh echoed through the cemetery. They're not who you think they are, Calla. They're murderers. Headlights swept across the graves. A car door slammed.
Uni.
Mom's voice cracked with panic. You need to go back to the hospital. Tell her. Juniper didn't move. Tell her what you did to Sarah.
To her baby.
Dad appeared behind Mom, his face ghostly in the moonlight. That's enough. No, it's not. Juniper struggled to her feet. Tell her why you gave Calla everything, the trust fund, the connections, the opportunities.
Tell her it was blood money.
Sarah's family settlement, redirected to your new perfect daughter, while I got nothing. We were trying to protect you, Mom whispered. Protect me? By making me watch Calla get everything that should have gone to Sarah's baby? My sister? The world tilted sideways.
What?
Half-sister, Dad corrected quietly. Sarah was carrying my daughter. When she died. When the accident happened. When Mom cut the brake lines, you mean? I didn't. Mom's voice broke. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I just wanted to talk to her. But she died instead. Juniper's voice dripped venom. And 9 months later, perfect Calla arrived to replace what was lost. While I came later, the spare, the reminder of everything they did. My phone buzzed, Reese, probably wondering where I was. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process the horror unfolding. The letters, I managed. Show them. Juniper pulled them from her jacket. Already sent copies to the police. Anonymous tip about an old accident worth reinvestigating. Mom crumpled to the ground. Dad reached for her, but she recoiled. I wanted to hurt you, Juniper said, looking at me. Like they hurt Sarah. Like they hurt me by pretending everything was fine while giving you the life that should have been your sister's.
But now.
She dropped the letters at my feet. Now I just want the truth out. Sirens wailed in the distance. Dad's face went slack with recognition. Junie, please, he begged. We can fix this. Fix it. She gestured at Sarah's grave. Like you fix this?
No.
I'm done fixing your mistakes. The sirens grew closer. Mom sobbed quietly. Dad stood frozen. And between them all, I saw our family for what it really was, built on death, lies, and blood money that had bought my entire life. Juniper turned to leave, pausing only to whisper, Happy birthday, sis. Say hello to the police for me. Red and blue lights flooded the cemetery as I stared at Sarah's headstone, wondering how many more lives our family's secrets would destroy before the night was over. The interrogation room felt smaller with each passing hour. Across the table, Detective Chin studied the letters spread before her, while Mom sat silent beside her lawyer. Dad was in another room, probably telling his own version of the truth. MS. Andrews, Chin said, your sister claims these letters prove premeditation, that your mother deliberately caused Sarah Mitchell's accident. Before I could respond, the door opened. Grandmother Alara stepped in, her presence filling the cramped space. I'm afraid those letters don't prove anything, she said. Because I wrote them. Mom's head snapped up. Chen's eyes narrowed. That's impossible, I said. They're in Dad's handwriting. The ones you have are copies. Alara pulled a weathered envelope from her purse. I forged the originals 27 years ago to protect Sarah's real killer. The room went still. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Juniper in the hallway, her hospital gown replaced by police-issued sweats. "Grandmother," she started, but Ilara raised a hand. "I watched you girls tear each other apart over lies. Lies I helped create." She placed the envelope on the table. Sarah wasn't leaving Silas for her baby. She was running from him. Mom's lawyer leaned forward. "Mrs. Andrews." "The brake lines weren't cut," Ilara continued. "Sarah drove off that road deliberately. I know because I was with her that night. She couldn't bear the thought of her child being born into Silas's web of manipulation and control." Chen opened the envelope, revealing photos. Sarah with bruises she'd hidden, hospital reports she'd never filed. "Mom didn't kill anyone," I whispered. "And Dad, your father isn't the man you think he is." Ilara's voice hardened. "I forged those letters to protect Leora, to give her a chance to raise you girls away from him. But I failed. He still controlled everything: the inheritance, your opportunities, Juniper's isolation." Juniper appeared in the doorway, tears streaming. "You knew? All this time? I thought I was protecting you both. Instead, I helped him pit you against each other." Chen gathered the evidence, her expression grim. "We'll need formal statements. And Mr. Andrews will face questions about Sarah's abuse allegations." "No." Mom stood suddenly. "I'll tell you everything. About Sarah, about Silas, about what really happened that night. No more protecting him." Through the window, I watched Dad being led to another interrogation room. He caught my eye, and for the first time, I saw him clearly, not as the father who'd given me everything, but as the man who'd orchestrated our family's destruction. "I'm sorry," Juniper whispered, joining me. I wanted to hurt them, or to find the truth. Both. Neither." She pressed her forehead against the glass. "I didn't know about Sarah, about what he did to her." Ilara approached us, her shoulders heavy with decades of secrets. "Your father's greatest weapon was turning you against each other. Don't let him win now." In the hallway, Mom emerged from the interrogation room, looking both broken and stronger than I'd ever seen her. She'd stopped protecting Dad's lies, chosen truth over false peace. "What happens now?"
Juniper asked.
I thought about Sarah, about the sister we never knew, about the weight of inherited sins. "We stop fighting each other. And we start fighting him." Chun appeared with more forms, more questions, more unraveling threads of our family's tapestry of lies. But as I sat down to give my statement, I felt something shift between Juniper and me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like what you expect. Sometimes it looks like truth, finally breaking free. 6 months after Dad's arrest, I stood in Sarah's family cemetery, watching Juniper place fresh flowers on her half-sister's grave. The autumn wind carried the scent of rain and change. "They're dedicating the women's shelter next week," Juniper said, adjusting the flowers. "Mom thinks we should both speak at the opening." The shelter had been Mom's idea, funded by the inheritance I'd returned to Sarah's family. A place for women like Sarah, trying to escape men like our father. "Have you visited him?" I asked, though I already knew the answer.
"No."
Juniper straightened, brushing dirt from her knees. "But his letters keep coming. One every week, like clockwork. Just like he did to Sarah." We walked back to the car in silence, both thinking about the trial next month. Dad's lawyer had offered a deal, but Mom refused to back down. "No more hiding," she'd said, her voice stronger with each passing day. Grandmother Ilara waited at the house, supervising the movers as they packed up Dad's remaining belongings. She'd sold her own home to move closer, claiming she was done watching from a distance. "The therapist called," she said as we entered. "Confirmed tomorrow's session." Juniper tensed beside me. Family therapy had been her idea. Surprisingly, revenge didn't fix anything, she'd admitted during our first session. I just made new wounds instead of healing old ones. Reese arrived with lunch, carrying more than just food. "Your boss called," he told me. "They're offering you your job back. Full reinstatement, public apology for the misconceptions." And Junie? I asked. The university approved her transfer credits. She starts next semester. Juniper's hands shook slightly as she took the acceptance letter. She decided to study social work, turned her understanding of trauma into something constructive. Mom emerged from Dad's old office, carrying a familiar wooden box. Found more letters, she said. These are different though. Sarah wrote them, but never sent them. We gathered around the kitchen table, our new tradition, replacing the formal dining room dinners of our past. Mom opened the first letter, Sarah's words filling the space between us. I hope my baby grows up stronger than me, Mom read. Strong enough to recognize love from control, truth from manipulation. Juniper reached for my hand under the table. I squeezed back, remembering all the ways we'd fought each other instead of the real enemy. There's something else, Mom said, pulling out a photograph. Sarah, young and smiling, stood in this very kitchen. She was happy here once, before your father changed her. Changed all of us. We changed ourselves back, Grandmother said firmly. The doorbell rang, Detective Chen making her weekly check-in, ensuring Dad hadn't violated the restraining order. Some habits of fear were harder to break than others. Later, as sunset painted the sky, I found Juniper in the garden, planting bulbs that wouldn't bloom until spring. Do you think we'll ever be normal? She asked. Normal's overrated. I handed her another bulb. I'll settle for honest. She nodded, understanding what I meant. We were building something new from the ashes of our father's lies. Not perfect, not unmarked by the past, but real. My phone buzzed. Another letter from Dad, probably full of explanations and justifications. I deleted it unread. Some voices didn't deserve to be heard anymore. Ready for tomorrow? I asked Juniper. She looked at the freshly turned earth, the promise of future flowers buried beneath. Ready to try. Above us, storm clouds gathered and broke, rain washing away the last traces of summer. We stayed in the garden, letting it soak us, baptizing us into whatever came next. Not quite healed, not quite whole, but finally free.